Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Virtual Visioncon 2020. I am your host, Zack Wilson, and you didn't come here to see me, however. You came to see the Director of Public Relations of B&B Theatres, the ever-charismatic Paul Farnsworth.
Good to see you, Zach. I came here to see you.
Well, thank you, Paul. And Paul is actually, funny enough, one of my part of the menagerie of my bosses at B&B Theatres, because I'm also the marketing manager of the Ozark Next to 12 branch. So that's how I know Paul. But you guys all probably know Paul from all of the advertisements of B&B Theatres, the B&B Theatres YouTube channel where he is the star. So a lot of you already know who Paul is, but right now, him and I are just going to divulge into some, more in-depth conversation about movie theaters in general, what B&B means to all of us, and what it's doing during all this craziness. So, let's begin with tell me a little bit of B&B's background. Like, where did we get the start?
Sure. Geez, that's a long story. I'll give you sort of the abridged version. B&B Theaters has been around since 1924 in one form or another. The B's stand for Bills and Bagby, which were two families that each had their own independent theater chains, one in Kansas and one in Missouri. So they remained close friends. They went to industry conventions together. They shared sort of secrets and tips for how to find success in the industry. Long story short, in 1980, this is the part where it gets a little bit like tongue twistery. Here it is. Sterling and Pauline Bagby's son, Bob, married Elmer and Amy Bill's daughter, Bridget. Bob married Bridget, Bills and Bagby. 1980, they got married. The two circuits joined together. So now we are in 2020, been in business for almost 100 years. The Bagby and Bills families are still intimately involved. They still own the company. To make it even more confusing, Bob and Bridget have 3 adult children, one of whom is my boss. They are named Bobby, Brittany, and Brock. So it just keeps on giving. But it's a great company. I've been with them for almost 13 years now, and we believe wholeheartedly in the magic of the movies, providing a theatrical experience that's fun and safe and family friendly. And wish we could be doing that right now.
Which actually perfectly transitions me into my next question. What is B&B doing amidst all this pandemic to kind of keep morale going while also, keeping public safety and health at the prime most objective?
Yeah. Well, let me offer the sort of traditional disclaimers here. First of all, everybody's in all this together. B&B is, of course, not the only company or organization that has been affected, as we see manifest in this virtual Visioncon that we're doing, as opposed to a physical one. So our hearts go out to everybody who's been affected, certainly anybody who's been affected in any physical way by the disease itself. To try and sort of remain relevant, I guess, and connected to our guests, we're trying to do a lot on social media. We've started like a recurring trivia night every Tuesday night. We go live on Facebook. We're doing curbside popcorn, which is like this new thing that we never thought in a million years we would be doing, but we're selling our concession products through our website, and then people can pick them up on Friday and Saturday nights. It's just, we're having to reassess our model, kind of what we can do in association with local and regional and state and federal health policies that seem to be evolving on the fly. What we're not doing, though, is showing movies to people. All 50 of our locations across the country are temporarily closed. There seems to be some light maybe at the end of the tunnel. I live close to Kansas City, and it seems like on May 3rd, the stay-at-home order will lift, which will create some opportunities for some people. But if we can we open at full capacity? We just don't know. And so in the meantime, we're open to suggestions for what we can and should be doing to remain on our guests' minds. But first and foremost, like you said, our priority is the health and safety of our employees and guests. So we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, it's in line with safety policies and still as fun as possible.
Well, on a couple of notes of what you said, for the curbside stuff, I actually worked it at the B&B Theatres Ozark Next to 12 location last weekend, and I was shocked. Like, I figured, some of you would come out, support, and order some popcorn or anything like that. But I did not expect how many of you came out here and just helped us out, and with this curbside stuff, it's all very safe. We're wearing masks, gloves. We're not actually handing you personally the popcorn. We're putting it in like your passenger or back seat. But the sheer amount of you, it almost made me cry, the amount of people who came out to support us. So we really do appreciate that. And then the second thing, your trivia stuff, I got to tell you guys, go to B&B Theatres Facebook page and watch all of the ones that they have done and keep up with the live stuff, because you and Chris Tickner are just a riot. You have a very unique dynamic that the two of you share, and I really enjoy it. I know a lot of other people do as well.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been fun. Let me, to your points, the curbside thing, I know I'm supposed to be the company man. I'm supposed to be all, everything's going to be okay. I was surprised also. I think a lot of us were. It was something we decided to just kind of try to dip our foot in the water and see, will people, do they want this? There've been a lot of social media traffic, people making that suggestion, but we weren't sure. And so we were absolutely blown away. I think we had almost all of our locations participated. Between the 2 days, we had over 4,000 vehicles come through our parking lots. It was wonderful. And the best part is that the proceeds from that popcorn sale benefits furloughed employees like yours truly, who needs continuation of health insurance coverage. So for all of our furloughed managers, it was a big deal. So I echo your thanks and appreciation to our guests who showed up. As to trivia, I agree, man. It's been fun. And it's been harder than I thought it would be, to not only create questions that are sort of hopefully engaging and fun and challenging, but also to fill some time with like playful banter and conversation that people don't get sick of hearing. But yeah, Chris and I, we've been working together for like a decade in various capacities. We have a very fraternal kind of relationship. I wouldn't say it's combative, but we are very competitive and both kind of want to stump the other. And so, yeah, we've been really thrilled. Our trivia last night actually was shared on the Sony Pictures main Facebook page, which I thought was awesome. So we have had some studio support, folks who are trying to help spread the good word of the B&B trivia.
And so that's all great. And honestly, I mean, you have to have a little bit of rivalry in order to make something like this that successful. And you guys have that perfect balance. However, playing trivia is not the only thing you do by a long shot. I mean, you're the director of public relations.
Yeah.
What does your day-to-day look like, when the world is not in the middle of a pandemic?
Oh man, that's a pretty good question. And honestly, my answer probably depends on the day. And you've been with B&B long enough. I mean, that's kind of the way the business is. And that's one of the things that I love about it. So on any given day, you might be slinging popcorn, you might be running an event, you might be hosting a rental or a private party. So in a different sphere of things, that's kind of how my work is too. I do a lot of work with the press. So I manage all of our media relationships. I do a lot of radio buys for various locations. I write a lot of press releases. I'm part of sort of the executive team that helps to determine the progression of corporate culture, sort of defining our brand and identity, and then developing campaigns to inform the public of what that brand and identity is. Making sure that our policies are in alignment with that brand and identity. It's really been a lot of fun. I've been doing it for a few years now. And what's been great too is that B&B has gone through some really significant and monumental changes over the last few years. The biggest probably would be in late 2014, we purchased the Dickinson Theatres chain, which essentially doubled our theater size and capacity overnight. So we were a significant player in the industry, and then we became infinitely more so very quickly. And so we were scrambling to decide how we wanted to convey that message to our guests. And I think it worked out really well, ultimately deciding on some core values and then shaping sort of our approach to running the business around those values. So in a nutshell, I'm just like you are, Zach, man. I'm a team player. If something needs to be done, we try and throw in and do what needs to be done. Like you alluded to also, we have sort of a fledgling YouTube following. My man Nick is sort of my partner in crime on the YouTube channel, where we put together some content every week, or at least we do when we're open, to showcase upcoming content, have a little bit of fun and frivolity as we do some kind of skit or something. but just sort of working with those other guys on the marketing team and our local marketing leads to make sure that movies are being advertised and the B&B brand is being represented.
I gotta say, from a personal note, coming from a person who's kind of tracked your guys' YouTube channel since its beginning, I mean, I'll be honest, the skits at first were, I pity laugh every now and again, but I gotta tell you,
me too, man.
These latest ones, like, legitimately are funny and clever, and just, you guys have definitely picked your stride. And Fledglings, I think, is a bit unfair. You guys are getting a massive following very quickly.
Well, thanks. I mean, and it's tough too, because I mean, we do a lot of administrative stuff. Like at the end of the day, there's a business to be run. So some people are like, dude, your job's awesome, man. You just make those videos, and what, do you eat popcorn? Is that like what your job is? So really on Mondays, we kind of get together and we figure out how those skits are going to be. And it's a challenge to try and be clever on a schedule. And so it's really been great. We've got a wonderful team. Who can be like, hey, is this idea any good or is it terrible? And we're honest and we're open about it. And like you said, sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss, but regardless, we have a good time with it.
I mean, the movie theater job in general is a lot like that in the case of, like, for every fun thing you see, I mean, there are a business side of it as well, and also things not as fun. Like, for every big marketing event I put together at the theater that you see me do that's super fun, there's 3 times of me kicking teenagers out of R-rated movies they snuck into, or stuff like that. But something that you brought up a little back that I want to actually touch back to, B&B, is just one of many theater chains. And granted, it is one of the most prevalent ones. And I kind of wanted to ask you, as someone who has a very much direct influence to that, why B&B stands out from all its competitors.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm biased.
Sure, I mean, sure, we both are.
But I would like to think that even if my paycheck didn't come from B&B, there would still be things about the company that I would notice. The things that we try and focus on are, well, I think it harkens back to our core values, which are family, fun, innovation, joy, and integrity. And we've really, truly made a concerted effort to let those values inform our decisions. So if we're looking into moving into a new market or implementing some kind of new policy or forming some kind of new partnership or making a new employee regulation or what have you, is it in line with those values? Will it bring fun and joy to our guests and to our employees? Is it moving the bar in any meaningful way? Are we progressing in an innovative capacity? Those are things that we really do allow to inform our decisions. And if we find that a proposal does not, we typically don't pursue it. And so I think that has led us to have really incredible guest relationships. People are committed to us, and they don't just think of us as the movie theater in town or the place where they have to go to watch a movie, but rather a place where they know they can take their family, where they will be recognized and where they'll be valued. That is really important to us. And before I was a B&B Theatres employee, I was a B&B Theatres guest in my hometown of Neosho, Missouri. And that was where my brother and I went all the time, knowing that we would receive great service, we could watch great content on screens that were in facilities that were well maintained. So that's a long-winded answer. I don't even know if I answered the question well enough, but we just hope that people come here and have an experience that's memorable and exciting. For you and I, Zach, for you and me, we get to go to the movies kind of anytime we want. And the movies sometimes can even feel like work. But for most Americans, they don't get to go very often. I think the average American family goes like 3 or 4 times a year. And so we want to make sure that the time that they spend with us is meaningful and that they feel like they're getting their dollar's worth.
I 100% agree. My old district manager, he doesn't work with us anymore, but I was there at the Ozark Next to 12 branch ever since day one, so that was 8 going on 9 years ago. And on the day of orientation, our district manager said, the current district manager, not the one that it is now, told us something that always resonated with me. He said a lot of what you just said, but he said that movie theaters provide people for an opportunity to escape the stresses, the fears, and just the anxieties of life, and for 2 to 3 hours, just sit down, be catered to, and just enjoy themselves. And that always kind of resonated with me. Now, B&B as a whole, however, I have two quick stories. Number one, at Barnes & Noble, I gotta say, a couple years ago, I was just, looking at manga like I always do.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, a guy was just like, movie guy, like to me. And I was like, it's Zach, but thank you. And so that's just a kind of an interaction that come from the rapport that we build with our customers. And then as far as the family that actually founded and runs B&B, the Bagbies, my first day that the theater was open that I work at, I was, going to the bathroom, and a person comes in behind me and, goes to the bathroom. I don't see who he is, but I go to wash my hands, and anybody who knows me, I take a hot minute to wash my hands. I was washing my hands to the tune of Happy Birthday before it was cool.
Sure.
So he finishes and he washes hands next to me, and I still don't really recognize who he is. But he then turns to me and is like, "So you excited?" And I look, and it's Bob Bagby. And I get kind of weak in the knees, and I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "We're really happy to have you on here. Thank you so much for working with us." And I don't know, that's just a very integrity move. And then this whole curbside stuff to make sure health benefits are good for all covered employees. I just think that's a really big integrity move. So I don't know. Every job has its downsides, but the company itself has never been one of them. And I really appreciate working under a company like that. All right, Paul, I got one more question for you.
I'm ready.
What do you think the movie theater industry is going to look like after this whole pandemic is all over and we kind of start to get back to normal?
Save that one for last.
Save that one for last? This is last.
That's I'm recognizing the wisdom in that.
For sure.
That is a great and fair question. B&B's position is one of optimism. And I think justifiably so. The movie theater industry has survived everything that has happened in the last 100 years. So there have been wars, and there have been recessions and depressions, you name it, the theater industry has been through it. And I think you touched on something that's really critical there, this idea of escapism, that the theaters have historically been the place where people go to kind of forget about life for a minute. And if things have been unpleasant at home or at work, they can go sit in the dark with some complete strangers and laugh or cry or whatever. And so the value of that can never really be diminished by anything that's happening outside. And so we're confident that when this thing ends, which it will, folks will come back. The actual sort of calculated metric is anybody's guess. A lot of it has to do with local health departments, county health departments, what parameters they put in place, because that will govern how many people can come back at any given time. That being said, if the government was like, hey, open everything today, open up theaters, business as usual, would we be 100% capacity for the next 6 months? Or would it take a long time for people to be like, I'm going to go give it a chance? And really, we don't have any kind of precedent. And so what we're trying to do through the efforts that we've talked about on this conversation is to remain relevant and remain involved in our guests' lives and give them a reason to come back. So as soon as we can, we're going to put content on screen. We're going to do what we can to eventize that content, create drink specials or other events surrounding the feature online, something before or after the film, to give them a reason to test it out. I think there are broader conversations taking place as well about the impact of streaming services. Everyone is like sitting at home, engaging in content in not a new way, but maybe the volume of in-home consumption is higher than usual. Is that establishing a new standard, a new preference? Is it making people want to remain at home, or is it making people want to leave the home? We're just going to kind of wait and find out. What has been really exciting, though, I think, for me to be sort of the fly on the wall in a lot of these conversations is that the industry is uniting. And so the big boys, the major theater companies, which I'm choosing to remain unnamed, but you know who I'm talking about, they're leading the charge in terms of preserving the theatrical window and the value of the experience. And all of us are united behind that. So then, now that we've made our case, we need to be sure that we deliver. And that when we can open, we are getting content on screen from studios as quickly as possible. It's been fun to see a lot of directors, a lot of studios also get behind the saying, hey, I'm not pushing my content out any other way. I make movies for the big screen. And naturally, we love to hear that, but I think that people respect that too. Yeah, I was talking to Chris last night after trivia just about some of our favorite movies, and we have trouble delineating between the movie and the experience. You know, like Endgame is the one that I always go back to, man. I love that movie like everybody else on earth. But had I seen it at home for the first time on my like 50-inch TV, it would have blown me away, man, but it would not have like impacted me the way it did when I saw it with 300 people. And when like Captain America picked up that hammer and 300 people are like, yeah, it was awesome, man. And that's something that happens only in the theater. If it had been me and my wife and my kids, it would have been cool. But when you're there with people who share that passion in a huge room with killer sound and it's just something else. And so I think that the magic of that will persist. It's just a matter of timeline.
Honestly, Endgame was a perfect example. That was the one that first got into my head because, yeah, that exact scene, though in my case, it was 299 people stood and cheered. I was hoping it was going to be Vision during that scene, but, you know, I didn't get what I wanted, but that's fine. That's fine.
Hey, but he died to save us all.
Sure, but I'm hoping they bring him back in the Disney Plus show, but whatever. That's not neither here nor there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the virtual Visioncon 2020 exclusive interview with Paul Farnsworth, Director of Public Relations of B&B Theatres. Paul, do you have any last thoughts?
I do, Zach. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. This has been fun. You gave me an excuse to change out of my hoodie footy and put on a collared shirt, so thank you for that. But my man, I also want to just say you are an asset. So we're grateful to have you at B&B, but also what you're doing for Visioncon during this time, creating content, giving people something to watch, giving something people to be excited about. I tip my hat to you.
Listen, Paul, you know it's very easy to make me cry, so I'm going to stop you right there. But I really appreciate it, Paul, and thank you so much for just being the genuine person that you are. It inspires not only me, but everyone that just kind of sees your content. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to stay safe out there and tune in to more virtual Visioncon content. We're going to be streaming this all throughout the weekend with both live and recorded content like this. And make sure you go to B&B Theatres for YouTube and Facebook to check out great content. And as always, enjoy the magic of the movies.
Thanks, Zach.